Hi, my name is Chester Finn. I'm from Albany, New York, and I'm here to talk to you about knife safety. First of all, I want to let you know that I'm visually impaired, I am an epileptic, and I have diabetes, but that don't stop. First of all, I want to show you the knives I have for uh, the knife safety. I have this block, and it's like a knife holder. And what I discovered, uh, getting ready for this presentation, that the larger knives are facing towards the back, and the smaller knives are facing towards the front of the knife stand. And in the front, we have scissors. And I will show you the scissors first. I will talk about them. The scissors are in a little holder. But one thing that's different about these scissors, they have points, if you can see those. And they come out to a little edge. And I think that if you needed to poke something, that's what those points are for. And these scissors are a little wider because they're kitchen scissors. And if you need to cut paper with them, you can. But I think you cut, like I cut, like strings, like if I have hot dogs and they're strung together or something that's strung together, I use these scissors to cut them apart. You wouldn't want to use a knife to try to separate anything like that. But these are my handy scissors. I'm going to put them back in the holder. I'm going to locate the holder, and I'm going to slide the scissors back in there. I am going to show you the number one knife, I call it. This is the butcher knife. And I'm going to hold the knife away from me, and I'm going to turn it around so that I can show you the edge that's not sharp. It's on the left side of the knife. And I'm going to point it away from me so that nothing happens that the knife is pointing towards me and I accidentally fall or something. And we don't want that to happen. And on this side, the right side, I'm not going to touch too much because that's the cutting edge of the knife and it's the sharp edge. But if I was cutting something, I would have a cutting board. I have one somewhere, but I don't use it that much because I don't cut too much with these sharp knives. But if I did have something like ribs or chicken, something that I needed to cut, I would use this knife. And it's a little wider than the other knives. It's maybe, I don't know if it's 2 inches. It's probably 1.5 inches. I don't know for sure. But the safe way for this knife is to hold it away from you. And I can tell it has a point on the end. And always make sure you know, if you can't see it, as that you hold the knife with the edge that's not sharp, kind of away from where you're at and don't point it this way towards you. I'm going to put this knife away and kind of show you some of the smaller knives. I'm going to locate where the knife goes. I'm going to turn it upside down, locate the point, and slide the knife in the holder. And the next knife next to it is a little bit smaller than that knife, but it's still a sharp knife. Now I'm going to look at the first knife. I'm going to flip it. And the one thing that I found out a second ago, that these knives are in a different position than the other knife was. The pointed edge was facing that way towards the counter. And the sharp edge, that's the sharp edge. And the dull edge was pointing towards me out this way. But when I pulled this knife out of the holder, the sharp edge was facing me because it was pointing this way instead of the back way. So I just found out that that's the way those knives are. So you would have to reverse it to keep it pointing away from you. And this knife is a little different because actually the point is a little sharper and pointier than the other knife, if you can see it. And I think this knife is used to cut smaller, make smaller pieces, cut smaller pieces of meat. And I would not use this knife to cut things such as tomatoes and things like that. I have another knife on the table to show you how to use. I'm going to put this knife slowly back in the This is a little different because I got to locate where the holder is and move my finger and slide it back in there. That was a little more scarier than the other knife, even though the other knife was larger, is because that sharp edge was pointing towards me and not away from me. So I got that in the holder. Now this knife, oh man, this is not good. Somehow I used this knife to bend some food. Let me get it straight on it. Sorry about pork, people. This is what most people call a butter knife. This is like I told you, the flat side. And these knives are different than the sharp knives because they're rounded at the top. And the sharp edges you can kind of touch a little bit because they're like grated. So this would be used to cut things like tomatoes, butter bread, make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, ham sandwiches, and spread stuff with. And these are knives I like to use because to me, they're like safer knives. But don't make a mistake to feel that just because they're not as sharp, that they're, that you can use them. They're still a knife and they're still dangerous if you use them the wrong way. And I still have this knife pointed away from me because I don't want to point it at me and make a mistake and poke it into my stomach or, have something happen with it. But, this is my favorite knife to use, to cut things, separate things. And if I need to slice something that's not hard, it's not ribs or chicken. I'm gonna lay that knife lay that knife down. So that's the thing on my safety for knives, is that you can use them, but you have to use them in a safe way and not be afraid of them. A lot of times, what people do when they're washing dishes, they put the sharp knives in with the rest of the dishes. I never do that. You hear about people cutting their hands or sticking knives into their hands and stuff, or cutting themselves with knives because they have them in with the dishes. What I do is, if I have a sharp knife, I make sure that I know where it is first when I wash it. And I wash that knife first and then rinse it off. And I don't put it in the same place that I put my other knives in my dish strainer. I kind of dry them off, and I will put them back in this container first, rather than waiting to have them in with my other dishes. And that's also part of knife safety, is knowing not only how to use your knife when you're cutting foods and preparing foods, but also when you're washing dishes and other things with knives. I don't fool around with sharp knives, because that's what they are, sharp knives. And I hope that you guys have learned a little bit. I'm not an expert on knives, nor do I want to be, but I want to know how to use them effectively and safely.